Hi friends, welcome back to Crazy Brave Homeschool. If you're new here, my name is Ashley and I am a homeschool mom to a third grader and kindergartner. This is our fourth year homeschooling and we have chosen a very Charlotte Mason inspired method for our homeschool, which is going to be a big part of our discussion here today. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about Charlotte Mason style exams. Now, I'm going to keep this video just kind of very loose and sort of conversational because I'm not going to pretend to know a ton about this topic, but I have had a few requests to talk about how we do Charlotte Mason style exams. And, I've had a little bit of interest about our version of it anyway, so that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. We just started doing Charlotte Mason style exams last year. My daughter was in second grade and my son was in TK, and so I didn't do it with him last year, but I did decide to do it about halfway through our year. We didn't operate by terms last year, so I just called it like end of first semester exam, and I did it over winter break. And then we did it again after the end of the year, after second semester, I guess, in June. So last year we did 2 exams, and then this year we are following a bit more of a pure Charlotte Mason philosophy. So we have split our year into 3 terms, and therefore we're doing 3 exams. We just did our first term exam a few weeks ago. And so I think what I want to do is just kind of probably talk more about how that exam went for us versus last year's, because it was just still so fresh. I am still learning about what a Charlotte Mason style exam is. Last year I did use, and this is a really great free resource for you if you're interested in trying them out, but Ambleside Online is a free online Charlotte Mason curriculum, and they have a lot of free resources. So you can actually take their exam questions and use them in your own homeschool, or at least be inspired by them. So last year, I think that's what I did. I took the kind of style of the questions that they would ask, and then I applied them to what we had learned in our homeschool. This year, I felt a little bit more comfortable with how to phrase my questions, and so I don't think I used Ambleside, but moving forward, probably even for term 2 and term 3 exams, I'm actually going to use the Alvieri exam model, which is a very pure Charlotte Mason model, because we became members recently. I'm only using one piece of their curriculum this year, but I'm using a ton of their curriculum for next year. And so I am going to start practicing their model term 2 and term 3. I'm really wishing I had a hot beverage right now because it is raining and so dreary. And this is good, but it's very cold. Okay, so of course I wrote down notes, but they're on my phone, which I'm using to record right now. I'm sort of famous for doing that. What I want to talk about first is just like, what are Charlotte Mason exams and how are they different from kind of conventional or more contemporary exams? The Charlotte Mason style exams are really, they're built around all of the subjects that you studied that year. And I mean all of them, even music, maybe art, foreign language, handicrafts, recitation, like all of these sort of more like enrichment or obscure subjects. They're all included in the exam. And so that's something that's a little bit new to me that I'm going to be implementing a bit more moving forward. So the exams encompass all the subjects, and they are a wonderful opportunity for you and your student to have a discussion or a very lengthy narration about the material covered in that term. These exams are very oral. There is not a lot of written work, and I'll talk about in what subjects or concepts there would be written work. But for the most part, it is just a conversation. The thing that I've definitely taken away the most about Charlotte Mason exams versus more modern exams is the fact that the CM exams are not necessarily something that the kids dread. And I don't know if that goes for every Charlotte Mason family, but I understand why. And so far, my kids, and my son now was a part of our term 1 exam this year, both of my kids really looked forward to their exams. Something that we do that I think other Charlotte Mason families do is they make it unique and special, and like opportunity for the kids and their parents to have separate one-on-one time. What we did last year and this year, and this is it plays a big factor into why my kids really looked forward to it, is that when their exam week came, I would take each kid separately to a coffee shop, and they would get a hot chocolate, and we would sit down and we would do day one of our exams. Our exams this term lasted 2 days. I know that in more pure Charlotte Mason homeschools, they would last all week and you wouldn't do any other subjects or studies that week. But for us, I broke their exams down into 2 days for each kid. So on day one, I took my daughter, went to the coffee shop. It probably took about 45 minutes for the exam. And then I dropped her off, picked up my son, and then we did the same thing the next day. So it was a little money out of my pocket for hot chocolate and scones. But it was really special, and it's something that the kids really enjoyed doing. So the experience is fun, right? In terms of the actual exam, the questions, what they're expected to do or perform, also didn't seem to pose any kind of stress for them at all. I think that right now, because we're still new, Charlotte Mason homeschoolers, somewhat new, it's more curiosity about what we're gonna do because they're still new with their studies and with these exams. So it's kind of more just like, what are we gonna talk about today? I think as we get further along, they are going to have a firmer grasp on the questions that I'm going to ask, because, say for instance, they will know that we studied botany this year, and so they'll also get a clear grasp on the style of the questions, and so they know that I'm going to ask something like, what can you tell me about medicinal herbs? So that kind of I wanted to plant that seed, that a big difference between Charlotte Mason exams and like public school exams is that it is so conversational. Another big difference between the two styles is that Charlotte Mason exams are not a multiple choice kind of questionnaire, as you can probably guess. So it is me asking questions. I personally use a recorder so that I don't have to be typing or scribbling down their answers. And it will be a very open-ended question. Like, for instance, I have our exam from a few weeks ago in front of me. For instance, it might be, tell me what you know about Leonardo da Vinci's life. So Leonardo da Vinci is one of the artists that we studied last year. And this would not be I wouldn't ask questions that were true or false. I wouldn't be giving her a multiple choice. The whole point with Charlotte Mason style exams is that it allows the educator to see what their children absorbed, and even more importantly, what excites them about the lessons that were learned that term. It is more about what they know and less about what they don't know. And I know that those two, that might be confusing. I know those things go hand in hand. When you do like a public school exam, you are trying to see what the child doesn't know. But so often when you frame the test with these multiple choice answers, sure, with these multiple choice answers, every time a child gets an answer wrong, you're only seeing that they didn't know that thing about, say, Christopher Columbus. You're not seeing what they do know. These questions are so limiting, and it's obviously a totally different style of exam. I'm not bashing it. I just am trying to present how different Charlotte Mason style exams are, because by saying, what can you tell me about Christopher Columbus or about Leonardo da Vinci, you are literally receiving the information that they absorbed. And that is such a beautiful thing about oral exams, right? I'm able to see what really stuck, what really excited them. Now, I have very young kids, so I don't want to, I'm not here to talk about what I don't know. So I don't exactly know what the exams will look like as the kids get older. I will just be following this process and growing with it. In terms of how young my kids are, and I think this is where people are interested in how they can implement this type of exam with their young kids, or really more so what the expectations should be. I only know what I was expecting of my kids at their ages, and I know that there's going to be a broad range between families. But what I expected from my daughter in terms of, say, Da Vinci's life was maybe 3 things. So, and this is where maybe some Charlotte Mason exams wouldn't do this, but I did notice on the alveary that they do. So, when she maybe struggled to tell me more than 2 things, I would say, can you tell me 3 things? Can you tell me 3 things about Leonardo da Vinci's painting style? So I think that this is could be a good tip for younger kids that might just not have a lot to say. And that's also okay. If your kids just don't have a lot to say about something, you're really meant to just move on and say, okay, that's fine. But when I get brief answers, that's when I like to be like, how about 3 things? Can you think of one more? I think some Charlotte Mason homeschools would say, just ask what they know. But I did notice on the alveary exams that if your child struggles to give you an in-depth narration about something, just ask for 3 things that they can tell you. So this also goes hand in hand with just narration in general. If you use narration in your homeschool. And of course, you can do whatever you want as the educator. It's not suggested to prompt kids too much with specific questions. Like if I wanted to know about Christopher Columbus, I would ask a more open-ended question, like, what can you tell me about his life? Or what can you tell me about the first peoples of North America? I wouldn't ask a specific question like, can you name the 3 ships that they sailed on, or anything like that, right? You're really not meant to go for the specifics. You're really meant to just leave it open so they can tell you what they remembered. Now, I will say this does not go for everything. What I am learning as I grow with this method is that there's drill work too. There's geography drills, map drills, so it's definitely not just open-ended. And I'll get a little bit more into that when I give you some example questions throughout the various subjects that I tested my kids on. But for the most part, when you're talking about a person or a major event, like, what can you tell me about World War II? It's really meant to be very open-ended like that so that they can tell you a story, and I think that that's really neat. Let's see. I want to give you guys examples of all the subjects and kind of what some of those questions might look like. But I will just add here, there's probably so much more to a Charlotte Mason exam in terms of like why they are the way they are that I'm just like not educated enough on yet, because this is just still fairly new to me. So that's what I know about it so far. I want to give you guys now an example of the subjects that we covered in the exam and a handful of questions for each subject, just to give you a more firm grasp on what these questions might look like. So I will add that for my son, and given my son is in kindergarten, so technically his exams wouldn't begin until 1st grade, but he was kind of bummed that he couldn't go with mom to get a hot chocolate and do this like special thing last year. He was just too young. And so I told him in his kindergarten year, he could do that with me. And it was really enjoyable. It did not feel like it was like inappropriate for his age or development. It was really great. My expectations of him and my questions were a little different for sure. And then there were some ways where, my expectations for my dog. And then there were some ways where I'm watching my kids right now because they're in the backyard on a bounce house and it's raining. So they're having a blast, but it also looks very dangerous. Anyway, he exceeded my expectations in some ways. And same for my daughter. I will say there were some really eye-opening pieces to our exam that were very helpful to me as the educator in seeing what we need to strengthen in moving forward into term 2. So I'll talk more about that. Okay, so for term 1 exams, I came up with questions for art history, science, music, geography, history, Spanish. Language arts has several components. Okay, so that was for my daughter. And then for my son, I did all of the same subjects, only far fewer questions. Okay, so for my daughter, for art, like I said, we studied Da Vinci. So I asked, what can you tell me about Da Vinci's life? Tell me 3 things about Da Vinci's painting style. And so, like, from that, I'm really hoping to get answers that are like, he liked to draw people. Maybe she would tell me the colors that he used. Maybe she would tell me if he painted things that were very real looking or kind of like make believe. You know, I will say her narrations about Da Vinci's life and his painting style were very good. For science, we are studying medicinal herbs this term. We have been reading a child's book. We have been reading a kid's book, Kid's Book of Herbs, I think it's called, and it's really great. It's an awesome book. And we've been studying one herb every 2 weeks, but we only do it once a week, and we're only doing it for maybe 25 minutes, 20 minutes. I got a little more specific with these questions, and I wonder if that hurt me. Because I was a little let down with what they remembered about at that point it had been 6 herbs that we had studied. Their memory of them was about 50% there, and maybe my expectations were too high. And I'm not sure if this really aligns with the Charlotte Mason style of exams, but what I asked her was, tell me 3 medicinal herbs you learned about, and then tell me 3 things about the uses of one of those herbs. Like, say she said, okay, chamomile. Chamomile is really good for relaxation. You can drink it as a tea, and it's good for tummy aches, something like that is kind of what I was sort of hoping for. I asked, name 3 herbs you can find in our backyard. They both did really well with that. And I think what that told me is that when it's there and it's something that they are just like very familiar with and living with, it obviously retains a lot better. And then I laid out 6 herbs and asked them to identify them. And I think that they identified 3 out of the 6. It's not bad, All right, so then moving into music. For music this year, we didn't do any music study. My daughter is learning to play the drums. And so I asked her to tell me 3 things that she's learned about in her drum lessons. History. We, at that point, had done only a 6-week history unit on Egypt. And this was a unit that they really enjoyed. And so I'm not surprised that their narrations were pretty good. For Poppy, I had her tell me, what can you tell me about the Nile River? What can you tell me about the Great Pyramids? Or the life of the pharaohs? She got to choose if she wanted to talk about pharaohs or pyramids. And then I had her tell me about her favorite project we did and why. And that's another important piece of Charlotte Mason exams, is that you really want to know what they enjoyed. So asking what their favorite project was, or their favorite handicraft, or their favorite book. So for geography, I printed out a U.S. map. Part of our geography is memorizing the 50 states that we have been diligently working on for a long time. Okay, so this was the map, and then I asked her for 15 states, and she did really well. She got 14 out of 15. And then I asked several very specific questions about geography. I think that this is in line with Charlotte Mason because they came from a Charlotte Mason geography book that we have been reading once a week. And they have review questions in that book. So I would ask, what direction does the sun rise? Where is the hottest zone of the earth? Which are the coldest parts and why? Which hemisphere do we live in, north or south? When do we have winter? Or why do we have winter? What's happening to the earth? What is the earth's axis? What causes the change of day and night? What discovery did Galileo make? How do planets shine? How did we prove the earth is round? Some of these questions were from earlier on in the term, and I think I think it was tough for her to remember stuff that was from the first few weeks of school. And this is where I'll get into like something I know I need to improve on for our exams. But she did pretty well. I'd say she maybe got like 6 out of 10 of those. And then for Spanish, I had her tell me 6 colors in Spanish, count to 10. How do you say, how are you? I'm good. And then tell me 2 emotions in Spanish. So we kept it really light because we haven't learned a lot of Spanish yet. And then lastly, and then I'll just say for math, we do separate assessments. And so I just don't include math in our exams because they have their own thing with that, their own schedule. Language arts has several components. So I had her look up a word in the dictionary. She will recite a poem, preferably from memory that we had been working on all term. But this is an area I need to talk more about with recitation, and just I wasn't quite doing it right, and so I'm going to do a little bit differently this term. I will have her copy work a passage from one of the books that we've been reading. I will have her take dictation from a book that we've read. I had her spell 10 words. I had her write about 12 letters in cursive. I had her tell me about her favorite piece of literature that we've read. I had her tell me about her favorite Shakespeare story we've read. And then I had her, for grammar, correct a sentence that was that I had written out incorrectly, and then for her to label the parts of speech that she has learned. The last thing I did with language arts was I had her properly address an envelope to herself, because that is something that we have been working on. And so just to kind of show you, so for the cursive letters, I just drew 10 or 12, whatever this is, places here. And then I would dictate, do an I, do an A, do an S. And she did that. For the spelling, she did very poor. We have really taken a loose approach to spelling this year. And this was really informational to me. We have started a new spelling approach that I'll talk about maybe in an update pretty soon. But her handwriting is also something that we've been working on a lot. But this was her spelling here. So she just used a blank piece of paper and I read off the words. And then for copy work, I wrote down the copy work and then she wrote underneath it. Her copy work has improved so much this year. We're doing it 3 times a week, every week. And then I had her correct the sentence that I wrote here and then to color code the different parts of speech. She did really, really well on this. And then at the end of those 2 days, that easily was done in 2 days, 2 45-minute chunks. And then we just didn't do school on those days. I think that I will see that grow, over time as she gets older. I will expect more out of the exams. I'll expect longer narrations for sure. Okay, and then not right when I get home. In fact, this part takes me a little while. But I will listen back to the recording that I did, and I will type up the exam to look nicer, like this. And so this is actually Woody's. But his answers would be in bold here. And then with the typed up oral exam, I will include the pages, of the map, the cursive, the language arts. Okay, so I hope I didn't miss anything for my daughter's exam. Before I move on to Woody and just kind of what his looked like, I just want to say a couple things. So something that I have definitely not adopted as a Charlotte Mason homeschooler is consistent review in our lessons. I think part of that is because we have so many subjects and I try to do no more than a 3.5 hour school day. And so to take the time to review before so many subjects like geography and science and history and more, it just, I think I forget to do it because we just have our lesson to do, right? But it is so crucial. And I think the subject that I noticed that the most in was science and the traits of these medicinal herbs that we've studied. Now, listen, my kids are in 3rd grade and kindergarten. I obviously don't need to have high expectations of what they retain. The fact that they are retaining something about these herbs that a lot of people don't know anything about is amazing, and I'm really proud of what we've achieved. But review would help, and so I actually realized that we should probably not learn many new herbs moving forward until we get these down a little bit more. So I came up with some fun games of review to learn about or to review these herbs. And so we're actually going to be doing that for a few minutes every day. And then if I feel like we're getting it down, then we can move on and start learning about some new medicinal herbs. But I just don't really see the point. And I asked my kids too, and they were like, yeah, we should stop for a little while and just like talk more about these. So that was good. And it's such a great thing about these exams. They're just like, they're so informational and helpful. The other thing that I really took away from this exam was the recitation. So we've been doing recitation since last year, and like I think I'm still getting a grasp on what it is or why it's important, because I was thinking last year that it was more about poetry memorization and just building that skill. It's a cool skill to have, to memorize poems. And so that's how we did it last year with first language lessons. And then I realized a bit more when I'm like, well, it's really about like thoughtful reciting, right? So that you're learning to speak clearly, and so that people can understand you, and that you're speaking loud enough, that you are creating good habits of being a good speaker, which is so important. And so that's why when I realized, I looked at the Alviary schedule, they have recitation every single day. And I'm like, oh my gosh, well, we've only been doing this once a week. And we're pretty much still only doing it once a week because we have our schedule, and I don't want to mess with it too much this year. But I am understanding now why doing that every day is important. The third thing that I realized about recitation and how important it is the public speaking aspect of it. Our kids, especially being homeschooled, are not asked to speak publicly on a semi-regular basis at all. I mean, the kids in public school have to speak publicly probably every day when they have to answer a question, right? Or, oh my God, this slide is so wet. Or if they have to read from the book that the class is reading. So I think that homeschooled kids, from what I can tell anyway, with my kids, definitely could benefit from public speaking. So when I asked, because I just assumed that my daughter, who's been working on this poem, Bed in Summer by Robert Louis Stevenson, all term, I just assumed that on exam day, she would gladly recite it for her brother and her dad. She was paralyzed. She was like, I'm not doing that. I'm like, it's just Dad and Woody. And you know the poem. We've been working on it all term. Well, I didn't know I had to do that. I'm too embarrassed. I'm not going to do that. And I was like, oh, like it didn't really occur to me that that would be a challenge, or that it would be embarrassing, or I was like, okay, well now I'm really seeing the value in recitation, learning how to recite. And so now what I'm having her do is every Tuesday when we do our recitation, I have her stand up and hold the book down, not in front of her face, and work on reciting this new poem that we're learning. She won't even do it without being in the privacy of her and I in her bedroom. Like, she doesn't want her dad and Woody to hear her reciting. I'm like, man, have I like screwed up here somehow? But yeah, so now I'm at least recognizing that the act of standing and holding the book as if you are telling it, reading to a crowd, is going to be really beneficial. So we're going to keep working on that, and hopefully this fear will go away. But man, I feel her, because I really hate public speaking big time. Makes me very, very nervous, even with just a few people. And so I understand. But now I'm really glad that I'm seeing that, so we can work on it early on. So really quick, guys, you know, my videos are always so long. Woody's exam was a little bit less in terms of expectations. So I asked him, Okay, well, this is cute now because now I can actually give you, I don't have Poppy's typed up yet. It's almost done. I just haven't really printed it yet. So Woody's, I actually can read you some of his answers so you can get an idea of like what a kindergartner or first grader, you know, might say. I asked him on day 1, what can you tell me about the artist we studied, Leonardo da Vinci? Woody said he paints and like the kids at school take the wings off of butterflies. And I could tell he needed a little more coaxing. So I said, how did Da Vinci feel about that? And Woody said he was mad. Da Vinci likes animals. I said, do you remember anything else that he liked to do? And he said he liked to sit on a hill. And I said, did he have any other big dreams besides painting? And he said, I don't remember. So it definitely took a little bit more coaxing from me. But I think that's okay. I asked if he could name any of the paintings that he's done, and he couldn't. I asked him to tell me 3 herbs that grow in our yard. He could remember calendula and echinacea. I then had him identify the herbs we studied. He got 3 out of 6, just like Poppy. And then I would write down my conclusions from day 1. So I wrote down his cursive was very impressive. He knew 7 out of the 8 letters. His map drills were great. He got 14 out of 15. Our herb study needs to be deeper. And then we will start reviewing at the start of the lesson. And then day 2 was a bit lengthier, quite a bit. I asked him, can you tell me what you know about pyramids? He said they used to be a long time ago. He said pharaohs go inside the pyramids. They hide gold in there. I asked, why was it a good thing that the Nile flooded every year? He said, because they needed water for plants. I said, would you want to visit Egypt one day? He said, yeah, I would like to see the gold and maybe steal the gold. And I said, did you know the pyramids are still there, that you can visit them? And he said, yeah, we can go inside them and we can see the Nile River. I asked him what his favorite Egypt project was that we did. I asked him if he knows what an archaeologist is. He said they dig up bones. I said, yeah, okay, sort of. Can you tell me 3 colors in Spanish? Can you count to 10 in Spanish? He did not remember some of the other words, like how to say happy, how to say sad, how to say good. And then I asked him some geography questions. Can you tell me the names of 2 oceans? Can you tell me 2 continents? What state do you live in? Where is the hottest part of the globe? Do you know why it's the hottest? And his answer, yeah, he did really well. He knows the songs of the oceans, excuse me. He knows the songs of the continents, so he can name all those. He knows the equator. He knows that it's hot there because the sun is shining right on it, he said. I said, do you know why we have nighttime? He said, because people need to go to sleep. I said, that's true, but what happens to the earth at night? He said, oh, the earth like kind of moves. When it moves, it turns dark. Okay. I asked him to name the seasons. Can you tell me 3 things about winter? And this is where like I wish that I would like not necessarily have said, can you tell me 3 things about winter? I should have just been like, what can you tell me about winter? What happens in winter? Because I think that when you start out asking for only 3 things, it just obviously limits the answer when it could have been such like a longer, more thoughtful answer. And then I asked him to read a sentence to me within his reading ability. And then I asked him to give me a narration for one of his favorite books that we've read. And I asked him if he likes it when mommy makes the story baskets. And he said, I like it a lot. So my conclusions from day 2 were that I was very impressed with his memory of Egypt, geography, and story narration. Let's see, he struggled a bit with the reading, and we will be starting Spanish over from the beginning because that was really necessary for both kids. So that is just like a pretty detailed example of how our term 1 exam was written. The ways that I will be changing it for next term the things that I will be doing a little bit differently or adding for next term is that I will not limit them from the beginning by saying, can you tell me 3 things about this or that? I'm going to try to just leave it a little bit more open. And if they struggle to give me information, then I might prompt them a bit and be like, okay, just give me 3 things or something like that. Another thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to add in more questions about our subjects. So like, for instance, Alvieri has the child show a family member or friend one of the handiwork projects that they did, and then they explain how they made it, which I think is really neat. So in our case, that would have been a paper Sloyd project. And something else I would like to do is for them to share with a family member or friend their favorite studio art piece that they did. I forgot to do that this term. Something else that I'm going to do a little bit differently is just make sure that I'm gauging how much writing I'm required on one day. I realized that I did too much language arts on one day when really I should have split it in half for my daughter, because I realized that I was requiring her to write too much. And you don't want to do that, because you want their best work. And so if you're asking for too much, it'll be short or sloppy, or met with resistance. So I will split up language arts next time over the course of 2 or 3 days. I wish that I had an Alvieri exam in front of me right now, because I think that there's definitely some pieces that I'm forgetting that I know that I'm going to want to add next time. But that's pretty much what I can tell you about our experience with Charlotte Mason exams. Again, I'm not going to pretend to really know a whole lot about it. I wish that I could be giving you more of a tutorial on this, but I really, again, just like don't want to pretend to know what I don't know. So this has been our experience with it, and I'm really enjoying it. It's something that the kids definitely look forward to, and I know that we're going to stick with this for sure. So any questions, any comments? I'll see you there, and thanks for watching another video. All right, take care. Bye.